Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, we're not. There's me rushing. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's Economy, Infrastructure and Communities Overview and Scrutiny Committee. Today is Thursday, the 27th of February. Item 1, apologies.
Good afternoon, committee. Apologies received from Councillor Hayden and Councillor Hutton.
Thank you. Item 2, any declarations of interest, members? Nope, okay. Items 3, minutes of the meeting held on the 30th of January. Are we happy that those are true record of events? Can I have a mover, please? Thanks, David. Second, Peter. We've got the minutes. Item 4 is progress on the local nature recovery strategy for Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent, and I welcome Councillor Simon Tagg, Cabinet Member for this area. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Obviously, we know that our environment faces many challenges. Over 1 million species around the globe are threatened with extinction. As a County Council, we've been given responsibility for the local nature recovery strategy that covers Staffordshire, Stoke-on-Trent area to develop the strategy for the area over the next couple of years. And there are 48 strategies across England under requirement of the Environment Act, and that will require mapping out of nature within those boundaries, so we can start to bring back nature, which is in keeping with the declaration that we made and motion at full council 18 months, 2 years ago now, to bring back nature to our county. It's very much a partnership initiative. The County Council is working with the City of Stoke-on-Trent, our district and borough councils, Peak District National Park, Natural England, Wildlife Trust and many, many others that I could mention are all working towards this strategy, working with landowners and the farming community, obviously, and other landowners across the county who've got a really important role to play in managing their land for environmental advantage for species and for wildlife. We bring to the committee today the update on this, the work that we've been doing on this, and there is a presentation with Sarah Bentley, our head of Environment and Countryside, and then Mika next to me is our manager for the local nature recovery. I'm sure she will want to say something too, but that's my opening comments, Chair. I'll hand over to Sarah now, who's going to give you a more detailed presentation on the local nature recovery strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm going to just briefly run through what the local nature recovery strategy is, why we need it, and the progress that we've made on it so far. So local nature recovery strategies, as Councillor Tagg has outlined, are a new initiative through the Environment Act. They are essentially spatial strategies that will set out the areas that are already really important for wildlife and nature, to map those areas where there's potential to make a real difference, and also to deliver wider environmental goals. So they are a legal requirement, and Staffordshire County Council has been appointed by the Secretary of State for Environment as the responsible authority to lead this process for Staffordshire and Stoke. There are regulations and guidance that set out how we need to take this forward, including how we work with our supporting authorities. And the development of the local nature recovery strategy is supported through a grant from DEFRA. And whilst there's no statutory deadline, DEFRA are really keen that these strategies are completed by the end of this year, and we're hoping to have ours completed during the summer. It's worth saying that local nature recovery strategies represent an opportunity. They're not dictating how landowners manage their land. They are identifying the places where we can make the biggest difference, and they will help to target future sort of incentives and guide activity. The key things we need to do to develop the local nature recovery strategy are to engage particularly with our supporting authorities, and for us that is our district and borough councils, Peak District, National Park Authority and Natural England, and obviously the City of Stoke. But also to make sure that we are thinking about our sort of wildlife, those wider environmental benefits that we can deliver. We need to link up across boundaries as well. There are 48 of these strategies across the country. The ambition is that they will link up. There will be no gaps, no overlaps, but they will kind of link up across borders. So as well as working with all the authorities within Staffordshire and Stoke, we also need to link up with those neighbouring responsible authorities to make sure that the LNRSs kind of talk to each other over the boundaries. And we want to engage as widely as possible, and we do have to publicly consult on the strategy. So why do we need a local nature recovery strategy? Well, it's really to address this alarming crisis that we have in biodiversity. Many of our species are in decline. And this is really what the local nature recovery strategy is trying to address. So in England, we are one of the most nature depleted countries in the world now, and around about 32%, so nearly a third of our species have declined in abundance since 1970. And bear in mind that in 1970, they weren't doing that great at that point, so that's a sort of a progressive decline. There are a number of government targets that have been set nationally, which are also part of global commitments to try and restore nature. And those are set out in point 10 of the report, and you can see them there. And probably one of the chief amongst them, it's an ambitious target to try and achieve 30% of land in this country and indeed around the globe protected for biodiversity by 2030, which of course is not terribly far away. And the benefits of doing that are not just for nature itself, but all of the things that nature underpins and contributes to our way of life as well. So nature delivers a huge amount of services for us, and it means it will deliver on those wider environmental benefits. And that particularly includes things like tackling climate change, nature-based solutions for flood management and air quality. So that's what the LNRS is about and what it's hoping to achieve. In terms of the progress that we've made, we've set up a governance structure to make sure that we engage fully with all of the supporting authorities and the wider organisations. So we have a steering group that has very broad representation and that is overseeing the development of the strategy and all the processes along with it. And then we have a number of working groups that are very active. They are chaired by representatives from across that partnership, and they focus on the data and mapping, which is a huge element of developing the spatial strategy, with extra focus groups focusing on habitats and species. Our stakeholder engagement group, which also includes a specific group for farmers and landowners, and then our strategic priorities group, and there's also a communities working group and a tree and woodland focus group as well. We also have a dedicated team of staff, and that includes Mika, who's here today as our project manager, and 2 liaison officers, and those posts are funded by DEFRA. So there are a number of steps that we need to go through to develop the local nature recovery strategy, and the first of those is to map the areas of existing good habitat, and that's something that we've already completed, so that map is there, and that includes things like our sites of special scientific interest, so our protected wildlife sites, our local county wildlife sites, local nature reserves, and also irreplaceable habitats. So going back to our step-by-step process, so step 1 is completed. Step 2 is around the review part of the process, which we don't need to do yet. And then we're currently focusing on steps 3, 4, and 5. So there is a huge amount of activity at the moment to identify and describe the area and to map those priorities, to model them and to look at the connectivity and to identify those areas where we can really make a difference by connecting up habitats and also delivering those wider environmental benefits. So there is a lot of data crunching going on at the moment to map and model those habitats and identify the areas where we can get the most benefit by targeting our resources and activities going forward. Included within that work is the development of a species list for the area. of those species which can benefit most through the local nature recovery strategy. And that involves, again, a huge amount of working with experts within the county and beyond to look at those species which we feel we can make the biggest impact on. And that's whittling a list of around 1,000 species down to a short list that will give us a real sort of focus. We're really keen to engage as broadly as possible through this process. So our stakeholder working group has developed a plan for how we do this. And again, at point 16 of the report sets out some of the progress we've made. So we've got a really active group. We're linking into all of those partner authorities and their communications teams to get the messages out. So that we're involving not just our partner bodies, but really trying to engage much more broadly across the county to community groups, interest groups, getting out to speak to farmers and landowners, all the people who can make a difference to nature recovery in the county in the years going forward and actually help deliver this strategy once we have it. And there's a website, social media, some blog posts, so there's lots of information regularly going out to try and keep people updated. And in terms of the timeline that we're working to, so the aspiration is over the next couple of months to try and complete that strategy and get the draft in place. Around sort of April, May, there is a process where we have to engage with the supporting authorities to make sure they're comfortable with that initial draft. There will then be a public consultation around sort of May, June time, and then we'll get the feedback, revise that strategy into the final version with a view to taking it through to adoption later in the summer. And it will come back to this committee as part of that process. So really today has been giving you a bit of a progress update, a bit of a heads up that that work is underway and it will be coming back to the committee in due course. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Are there any comments from members? David?
Thank you, Chairman. As someone who is passionately concerned about climate change and to deliver our local contribution to trying to do something about easing the problems of climate change, I'm very active. I'm a little bit surprised that the talk in the presentation about community groups. I'm not aware of forming community groups or any work that's been done by the county to support local members in what's going on. So I'd be very much like to know what that is. I'd be interested as well when we start to look at, for example, quarries, where we have significant wildlife. In my own neighbourhood quarry, we have a herd of deer, which I suspect we probably, because of the damage they do, probably would prefer not to have them. I'm interested, particularly from my own point of view, where I'm looking at the moment to a project which will plant over 100 trees in my village, which will help what we're looking at in the community activity here. What sort of funding is available to local communities to support their work that they are likely to be doing? Thank you, Chairman.
Armin, did you want to come in there?
Certainly, I'll also bring in Sarah in a minute as well. I think on the community groups angle, we have had, as we've started to go down the route of this local nature recovery strategy, a number of events where we've invited community groups that we did know about. I think also we had a members briefing session here as well for it, and that's the start of the process. As we go through, as Sarah said, there are consultation parts of this agenda as we move forward. And I think it's getting widely as possible down to parishes, to community groups. And I think there is a plan for that. And as part of the local nature recovery strategy, I chair the overarching steering group. Under that, there is a communities group that meet together to decide how that sort of stakeholder engagement with communities, parishes takes place. And probably, I don't know if Mika, you could say more about that, or Sarah, on how that's developing as we move forward. But you're quite right, David, we need to get out there and talk to communities. This is their plan as much as it is the counties and the cities and all the districts and boroughs. It's about communities getting involved in the environment. So on that point, I think Sarah or me can give you more details on that. Also on the quarries and the tree planting, I think those are, you pinpointed an excellent reason for bringing back nature, isn't it? We've got these disused quarries now that have spent their time and supplying materials for our economy and construction, and they're an ideal place where we can start to bring nature back as well. And I know your sort of record of tree planting in your division, and we're trying to replicate that across the county, of course, to reach our net zero target as well. But tree planting not only helps us to reduce the offset carbon emissions, but also makes our environment much nicer as well for our residents, but also helps nature to come back as well and use those trees for bringing nature back, all sorts of species. So I'll hand over to Sarah just if she wants to add any points on the community engagement and the quarries, if specifically as well.
Yeah, just on the quarries point, one of the functions of the local nature recovery strategy going forward is to link into planning and development and to provide that kind of strategic guide. So it would support things like quarry restoration plans, would look to the LNRS as a bit of a sort of steer on the type of habitats, for example, that might be really relevant in an area and that might be worth prioritising as part of restoration works. So there are those potential links, and there's a lot of work going on nationally to look at, as sort of planning is reformed, how the local nature recovery strategies will feed into that. And certainly some of our quarries where we've had really good restoration and we've got some fantastic habitats may well come out as part of those priority areas as well, with opportunities for expansion and connection. So that's something that we'll kind of look at as part of the process. In terms of the community groups, the communities working group that we've got is trying to link up and identify as many kind of groups in the area. There are obviously many, many of them, so there may well be ones that at the moment we're missing. We're working really closely with organisations like Support Staffordshire and Skivvies to try and kind of reach out into different communities and find some of those networks. And as we go into the kind of consultation stages as well, we'll want to kind of get that information out as widely as possible. I don't know whether Mika's got anything she wants to add in terms of communities.
I think I can do, Chair, on the back of David's relevant comments, particularly for our members, is to put out an update to members. We did do the members event quite a while ago now, and I think if we could put out an update calling for, members, local members have got the intel on community groups and areas that may have gone under the radar that we can help to include in this. We want their involvement, and perhaps we can do that through members' action as well.
Do you want to come back, David, quickly?
We've got a major problem as far as our rural areas are concerned. Particularly, I would point out where we've mentioned quarries. As a long-term member of the Planning Committee, we approve quarry applications on the basis that there is going to be a restoration plan where the owner of the quarry has 10 years to manage the quarry, at which point the quarry falls over because the number of community funded groups that are identified as the quarry inheritors are not going to have enough money to be able to manage the quarry. So we've got to look at new ways of quarry management and the quarry restoration, and just returning it to woodland or whatever it may be, which has a cost. I think we're going to have major problems. Not in my lifetime, Chairman, and not after May, as far as my membership of this council is concerned. That won't take away my concern and my interest in what I need to do in what is technically my division at the moment. But I do have a concern about quarries and about what we're doing, because what we currently have approved ain't going to work in 10 years' time. Thank you, Chairman.
Charlotte?
Well, I very much welcome the strategy, and I hope that you're linking up with the Staffordshire Moorlands Green Spaces strategy at the same time, because I know that that's a very active involvement at council level and community level. But what I'm looking forward very much to the strategy in the summer. But what I'm interested in really is what we're doing as a county council to bring nature back to those bits of land that we actually own ourselves. And I'm talking about grass verges. What are we doing to ensure that we don't just cut everything down to a few inches and do what they do in many places in England and in France, to mow a bit of the grass verge and then to leave the rest longer where it's safe to do so. And, you know, we have miles and miles and miles of green verge. You could call it a linear park if you wanted. And I just wondered what the strategy was, because the last time I asked about it, I was told it's cut 6 times a year, full stop.
Thank you, Councillor Atkins. I think the first point about working with Staffordshire Moorlands, Nigel Yates, one of your portfolio holders, is a key member of the steering group as he is of Staffordshire Sustainability Board. So there's close working with Moorlands, and there's a lot of real good work that's been going on there for a number of years that is feeding into this process as well. I think on grass verges, I agree with you. I think the policies are changing. It doesn't come actually to my portfolio, it's more of a highway portfolio, but I know through the contracts they're looking to leave areas longer. I've seen this actually up in Newcastle-under-Lyme, where I'm from, that we have planted wildflower seeds on some of the back verges, etc. So I think policies are changing. We've got No Mow May that gathers momentum every year, but then we've got to be careful that we need to keep the grass verges, particularly for highway safety. But there is a compromise, and I think as part of this strategy moving forward, that is, as you say, is almost like it is a linear park that runs throughout the county, doesn't it? And anything we can do to help nature to come back to those, whether that's through wildflowers, whether that's through sensitive tree planting, etc. I think it's something that can be included in this as well. But I think highways are beginning to look at that. Not really detailed myself on that, but I know that they are thinking of ways of changing cutting regimes to help to improve that.
I think there's also roundabouts. In fact, there was a spectacular roundabout on the A520, I think, near Stone, where, you know, it's absolutely brilliant in summer, absolutely full of wildflowers. And I appreciate it's not as easy as just throwing a bag of seeds. I appreciate that. But I do think that we could be doing more, certainly in other counties and in other countries. That seems to be something which is done. And I appreciate that sightlines are important. But it just seems to me that that's an easy win, and it doesn't require much partnership with any other organisation. So rather than waiting for the strategy to come out in summer, well, perhaps we could get on with our own land management.
Yeah, it's just the local nature recovery strategy is a strategy for Staffordshire and Stoke as a whole area. We've also, and we brought to this committee, you may recall a while ago, the natural environment strategy that we have for the County Council. We have got an action in there around road verges, and we are working with highways to look at how we can take that forward. It's sort of more complicated than it might seem, in that it's around the sort of the management regimes and things like cut and collect and all that sort of stuff. So it's and there is a piece of work going on at the moment to look at managing the sort of monitoring the extent and understanding what verge we've got where, and we're looking at how that ties in with other kind of protected sites as well. So there is stuff starting to happen on that.
Thank you. Connor.
I entirely agree with Charlotte on the grass verges. I think we've been talking about it for a very long time. We need to just get our finger out and do it. So if we can stick the rocket boosters up it, let's do it. On to my points. How much do we get from the government? That's question number one. You talked about the team that we have, and we have a project manager and we have 2 liaison officers. Is there any more members of the team that support those 3 individuals, and do they have necessary qualifications in order to do that sort of thing? And then in one of the requirements of the nature recovery plan, according to guidance, is to identify potential funding sources and mechanisms to support the implementation of the plan. And I think that's very crucial, because it's all right having a plan, but if we don't have any funding, then that's going to be quite difficult to implement. I appreciate it's quite premature to discuss that, because the plan is not yet in draft in front of us here, but have you given any thought to how we might try and identify and secure funding for the plan? Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wyman, we obviously have had £388,000 from the government to set up the this work on the local nature recovery strategy for Staffordshire and Stoke-on-Trent. We have the core team, and sort of Mika leads that team under Sarah. Also, we use obviously the expertise of members of the steering group to actually, they do chair some of the steering group, looking at species, that are looking at diversity, looking at all the other things. So we're actually using the talents which come from the Wildlife Trust, and the Wildlife Trust chair one of them as well. And that's the right way to go forward. And they're committed to this just as much as the county councillors, and signed up to, and they will be signatories of the local nature recovery strategy at the end of it. As for going forward, I'll bring in either Mika or Sarah on that, and some of the ideas about, you know, the ongoing funding of this once it's in place.
Just in terms of the wider team support as well, Mika and the liaison officers sit within the Environment and Countryside Service, where they're also supported by our county ecologist, for example, our staff on sites. So there's that sort of broader support, and then the partnership resources as well. In terms of the delivery, it's a really, really good question, and one that we are all asking at the moment. So we are waiting to find out from DEFRA whether there will be some additional funding for the delivery sort of elements of the strategy. At the moment, the funding they've given us is for developing the strategy. We know that the intention of the strategy is that it will also influence other sort of funding resources. So, for example, biodiversity net gain, part of the idea of the LNRS is that it will help target some of those biodiversity net gain resources and influence where some of that goes. It will also potentially influence agri-environment funding on the ground. So there will be sort of those elements of funding that are already in place, and it's about targeting those to the most important priority areas. But there's no doubt that if we're going to make the kind of impact we would like to make, some additional funding to support the delivery would be really helpful, and that's something that we've raised with DEFRA, and they are looking at that. We haven't yet had any information on what that delivery resourcing might look like.
Any further questions? I just want to say I think the members' brief, Councillor Tagg, sorry, boss, you wanted to come and welcome, is a good idea, because I don't have any parishes in Tamworth, so I'd be interested in which groups you're already in touch with and ones that we can put you in touch with. And there's something else I was going to say, but I'll hand over to Ross. Days.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, one of my questions, thanks, Conor, has been covered about the funding and the ongoing funding, so thank you for that. I'm just interested, first of all, it's good, it's nice to have something that feels positive to talk about for a change. You know, quite often things are quite cynical here, and it's nice that it's a difficult situation you're coming from, but it's nice to have a positive thing to look at. I'm just interested, first of all, is some of these are quite easy metrics, but some of them things like increasing in species abundance by 10%. I'm just wondering how we anticipate measuring this and measuring the success of this to make sure that we're actually achieving what we're trying to achieve. And obviously, a lot of the costs are up front, but the benefits are longer term. So it's justifying the ongoing investment and funding for something that you might not see come to fruition for 4, 5, 10 years, more longer maybe. So how do we measure that success and make sure that we're on track to get to the targets where we are? And we've touched on tree planting and quarries and grass verges, etc. But I'm just interested if you as a team, as a feel for what other kind of projects and ideas have you got? What's this going to look like for us, you know, out there in the great wild world? How is this going to visualise itself to us, and how we're going to recognise what we're doing? Thank you.
Thank you, Ross. I'll hand over to Sarah on the obviously the measuring of we are making commitments, 30% and the 10% you've said, and of course through the local nature recovery strategy and the steering group, we are looking at the metrics around that and the indicators, how we measure ourselves against that, and you probably be able to say more. So.
Thank you. So those the targets that were identified are the national targets that have been set. And I think the metrics for those, there's a lot of work going on nationally at how we kind of measure all of that. And there are data sets that have been tracked through the State of Nature reporting. So we have national survey schemes for quite a number of species, which give us some really good indications of what's happening. Obviously, there are thousands of species, and we don't have any data for quite a few of them. So it can be really, really challenging to pin down exactly what's happening. So at the local level, because one of the other challenges is that some of those national data sets don't work when you bring them down to just look at, for example, Staffordshire. You might only have a couple of survey sites, but we do have quite a lot of local monitoring, and so that's part of what we're doing at the moment, is pulling in all that local data and getting as much information as we can, and probably identifying a number of kind of indicator species that give us some reference points around how we're doing. But that's one of the things we'll look at as part of setting out those priorities and measures, is right, what exactly is that going to look like in terms of Staffordshire, and how we're going to know when we've kind of got it right. And that will be probably through some very selected indicator species, because we can't monitor everything. There just would never be the resources to do that. In terms of what it looks like on the ground, my anticipation would be that we will have an interactive map that says these are some of the locations where we can target Habitat X, because it will connect things up, or it will, you know, in the case of woodland, for example, we can target woodland here and we know that it will help flood management or air quality improvement, as well as providing really good biodiversity habitat. In terms of how that's delivered, it will be a combination of engaging with different landowners. I would foresee we may have some particular initiatives that come out of this. We've got a really long history of developing big landscape scale partnership initiatives in Staffordshire, so things like transforming the Trent Valley is a really good example of a project that's already been kind of running for a number of years. There is a new project developing in the Trent headwaters, so more of those kind of initiatives targeted to deliver parts of the local nature recovery strategy might well be the kind of thing we would want to take forward as a result.
Just to add to that as well, if you go on the website for the local nature recovery strategy, which is staffs and Stoke lnrs.co.uk, there's an interactive map already up there where you can begin to see some of the habitats, and the drill down, zoom into your division or your district, or look at the county as a whole as well. So that's really an interactive map which will become more and more populated as we get more and more information through this process. And you'll see on your doorstep where some of those areas which we're bringing back nature, and what sort of species we're looking to help to come back and enhance the environment around them. So something to keep an eye on really going forward. That map will grow, and with its complexity and information.
Councillor Tagg, I think when it comes to grass verges, we're damned if we do and we're damned if we don't. And I think they do look lovely when they are done correctly, and you know, towards the back of the grass verge rather than at the front. We've got a dual carriageway that goes from the snow dome into town, and when they did it along there, it looked absolutely beautiful. But then when the flowers all die off, it starts to look a bit rubbish, and ends up it being a rubbish tip because people just chuck stuff out the window. So I agree that it's a good idea, and I also agree that we just need to be careful where we do put them. And I do feel sorry for our highways team sometimes when they go out and things are done, and then people moan that we've done it. Sometimes we can't win. And I'd be interested in it as well in what funding there is for members that we can actually drill into and get some stuff done in our own areas.
I mean, Chair, there is obviously our Climate Change Action Fund, which of course the first part was in two parts this year. The first part is for those environmental enhancements, tree planting, nature, wildflower meadows, etc. And so that will hopefully, after May, obviously that will open again, plan to in June after the elections are out the way, for members to go out into their community and get community groups to apply to help to enhance their local environment, which will help us to get where we want to on the local nature recovery strategy.
I think myself and the vice chairs think that we should have more money. We should have more money for the environment, and yeah, ask him to empty his pockets a little bit. Well, if there are no further questions or comments, we're being asked today to support the progress on the local nature recovery strategy, and I think we've come up with some good plans going forward. So I thank you for your attendance this afternoon, and we'll move on to the next item. Thank you. So we've got, we'll just wait for you to swap over. So we've moved on to item 5, which is the Staffordshire History Centre update. Again, are you introducing this, Simon?
I am. Obviously, the portfolio can't be here today, Victoria Wilson, but she's done a lot of work on this. I'd like to pay tribute to her on this to start with. But the Stafford History Centre project was an £8.7 million project to bring together the collections of the Staffordshire Archive, the William Sort Library onto one site. It's not far from here. If people have been across, I went across this recently, and it's a brilliant facility. Provides single exhibition space for the archive, library and the county museum collections on one site. And it's an exciting project and transforming the offer from the Archive and Heritage Service. And it provides a new cultural venue within Staffordshire, Stafford for the whole of Staffordshire for the county. And since opening, the impact has been really significant with high numbers of visitors. I went, it was half term when I went across, and it was full of families, etc. over there looking at the exhibitions in the main area, which was really good. And the visitor numbers have seen an increase of 287% in the first month of opening compared with the 2019 figures. And the open event generated considerable media interest. Majority of that was positive, of course, for highlighting our history as the county, which we have. And the History Centre is a key part of the County Council's cultural offer, as outlined in the cultural strategy, which Victoria brought forward. And we're asking today, obviously, to receive the report and the update on the History Centre, and for your comments and questions. I've got, I believe there is a presentation that Joanne Terry is going to deliver, and I think that's all teed up, ready to go.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So yes, I'm Joanna Terry, Head of the Archive and Heritage Service, and I'm here today with my colleague Sarah English, who's Engagement and Access Manager for our service. So yes, as Councillor Tagg's just introduced, this is it's a really significant project, the Staffordshire History Centre project, with £8.7 million project with £4.8 million grant from the National Lottery Heritage Fund and £3.9 million partnership funding, majority of which is from Staffordshire County Council, as well as our project partner, the William Sort Library Trust, grants from other organisations, donations from friends of the service, depositors and in-kind contributions from volunteers. So whilst the project's been led by the Archive and Heritage Service, it has been massively supported by other services in the council, so property, obviously, finance, procurement, our communications team. It's been a really big collaborative project, and we're really fortunate to have that level of support. So the History Centre is obviously now open since the last update for members of the former Scrutiny Committee in November, when you had a tour of what was then a building site. And it has been really popular. It's a real new visitor attraction, but it is also a space to secure our collections and provide access to a whole range of visitors. We are exceeding our visitor target already and receiving a significant amount of positive feedback. So as referenced, the History Centre project is embedded in Staffordshire County Council's cultural strategy. It's a key part of the cultural offer, bringing to life the county's rich history. And so the previous update, as referenced, was on the 22nd of November. So what I'm going to cover is the real progress that we've made in just over 12 months, and also since opening the History Centre. So just to, if you haven't been to visit, and I would agree, I would encourage you, please do visit, just to explain what the History Centre is. We've essentially brought over 1,000 years of Staffordshire history to life in what is a new visitor attraction, and it's a heritage project on an existing town centre site in Stafford. So it comprises the 1960s Staffordshire Record Office, which is the image to the left of the slide, the bottom left of the slide. That's before the work was done, so that's what it looked like before. The William Sort Library, which is a Grade 2 star listed building, and it includes an 18th century townhouse and 19th century cottage. That's the image on the right. And then the other external areas around that site. If you imagine the William Sort Library at the front of the site, and it extends all the way back from Eastgate Street to North Walls. So to create the History Centre, a new glazed link was built over the courtyard between the two buildings, and new passive storage was added at the back of the site on what was the members' car park. And then in addition, there was a new walkway through the site with landscaping. So that's the glazed link you can see at the top of the site, of the slide. So constructing the History Centre, it started in February 2023, and then the work really continued through 2024 by Paverways Limited, which is a company based in Shropshire. And that worked on building the new passive storage, which is the image on the left. That's the black box. It deliberately has no windows to protect the collections that will be going into them. a very, very significant remodelling of the 1960s record office, and then the new link created through the site from North Walls through to Eastgate Street, and also restoration of the William Salt Library. So the site was handed over in phases, beginning with the William Salt Library, former record office and the Glaze Link in August 2024. And then the strong rooms were handed over in November, and the final work on the external staircase for the strong rooms was completed in December 2024. The strong rooms are now actually drying out, so they're not filled with documents as yet. They're drying out until they reach optimal conditions, and estimated in the programme from completion is sort of 6 to 12 months for that to take place. Once they have reached those conditions, and we are monitoring them closely, we'll then move the collections that are currently in an out store and temporary storage into those stores. So as I said, prior to the project, there was no formal pedestrian route through the site, though people did walk through the car park. But the green walkway, which is the sort of low-level planting to sort of help encourage and support wildlife on the site, has really attracted people through the site. It's improved connectivity, and we get passing visitors to the History Centre who then come back and visit us. So the former courtyard and the old entrance to the record office, that's shown on the right, and that's been completely transformed in the new Glaze Link as the entrance and exhibition space, which is what you can see on the left. So fit out of that space began last August by a contractor called Beaufort's, and then early in September, Wide Sky, a digital company, they installed our interactives and filmed a welcome video, which you can see the welcome video on our new website and also on the welcome screen. And then across the service at it, the teams worked together to install the main exhibition and the temporary display. So we've got star objects such as the Spider Phaeton carriage, which used to be at Shugborough, which is a sort of wow item as you go in. William Palmer's death mask. William Palmer's like our famous 19th century serial killer. He's very popular. Our oldest document, Wolfrit Spott's will from 1004, is on display. We've also got George Chetwynd's coat, an 18th century coat, another costume, and other items, all carefully mounted for display. The items also include childhood toys, and that's based on feedback from the family co-production sessions that we delivered in 2023. And other themes include shoemaking and food such as Staffordshire oatcakes. Now, over time, the items in the semi-permanent display will be rotated to protect the vulnerable materials and also to refresh content. So, for example, the costume was recently changed to display now a wedding dress and sailor's uniform from a wartime wedding for Valentine's Day, and we will obviously change the temporary display more frequently. So, a key element of the project is restoring the William Salt Library building. So that building actually belongs to the William Salt Library Trust, and it was maintained by Staffordshire County Council from 1994 up until a new agreement in February 2023, which actually returns maintenance of that building back to the trust. So it was was one unit, a townhouse and cottage, but it's been separated back into two units. So the cottage has been converted for residential use, and that is on the market for rent now, which the trust obviously manage. And then the ground floor of the townhouse, we at the County Council have leased that back as part of the History Centre visitor space, and it tells the story of William Salt, the library, and also the history of the buildings revealed by the project. And the image on the left is what the library reading room looked like before the project, so with the books there, and then the image in the middle is the same room, but that room now tells you about the house and the occupants of the house. And then the image on the right shows the trustees' room with books redisplayed on the original shelving, and you can see some period wallpaper at the top of the slide as well. The upper floors of the townhouse have been converted to office spaces for freelancers and startups, and these elements sort of will bring in an income for the William Salt Library Trust so that they can continue to maintain their own building. And the library collection will be stored in the new strong rooms and accessed through our new single research room for all of our collections. So the building did reveal a number of surprises, as well as the lovely period wallpaper and historic fireplaces. There were quite a few structural issues, but all of those have been addressed, and so the building has a really sort of secure future going forward. So our new research room is really modern, new furniture. So on the left is an image of the record office reading room, admittedly during COVID, so that's why it's quite sparsely furnished. And on the right is the brand new modern research room. So we've got all new equipment, we've got a public access computer space for digital microfiche readers, and we've got quick reference material from the William Salt Library available to consult alongside our archive collections. So we do ask that people order collections in advance, partly because some materials held on different sites, but also so that we can ensure we have collections available. And we're currently experiencing really high demand through our inquiries and requests for copies from our collections. So as well as actually constructing the History Centre, we've had a really significant activity and engagement programme, which commenced in 2022, supported by four posts funded by the lottery. And it's provided a way for us to really engage with different audiences and test activities. So when we compared, when we last reported April to December 2023 to the same period for 2024, we've seen a 12% increase in the number of participation of activities that we've delivered at venues across the county, and more recently at the History Centre. So using our co-production model, we've delivered family-friendly events in half terms at libraries, behind-the-scenes tours at our museum store. We've provided work experience opportunities for young people, engaged with over 1,000 pupils as we tested our learning sessions. We have created a learning programme which is due to be launched very shortly at the History Centre. We've also delivered targeted projects to reach Eastern European families, and we've worked with the Stafford LGBTQ+ group to develop our collections and take part in Stafford's first Pride Festival last August. We've delivered several touring exhibitions. Beneath Our Feet was one that completed last year, looking at natural resources in the county, and it toured a number of venues, and that's helped us reach out across the county, so it's not just about the History Centre in Stafford. And we also trialled some Explorer backpacks at that exhibition, and we now have those at the History Centre. We launched our new website last November. That's a single site for the Joint Archive Service and the Heritage Service. We've also digitised over 10,000 maps, photos and archive letters, catalogued almost 11,000 items from the William Salt Library collection. We've recruited new welcome volunteers, and we've returned our existing volunteer groups to the History Centre, and they've given almost 3,000 hours of service to the service up to December 2024. We've really embedded the Staffordshire History Network now, with over 800 people from local museums and societies signed up to the newsletter. This current year we delivered 5 network events in addition to advice and guidance to different organisations. So since opening the doors on the 6th of November, we've welcomed over 5,000 visitors now, so that's a slight update from the figure and report. That's as of February and our busy half term. So as already referenced, comparing November 2019 and November 2024 was a 287% increase. The feedback's been incredible. People have said how illuminating, inspiring and informative it is, what an amazing centre it is. It's really good for children with learning difficulties. There are numerous compliments for the staff and volunteers who've been welcoming visitors. A lot of visitors have commented it is what the town needed, and many have returned to continue their research into our dedicated research room. This really welcoming space has attracted new audiences and groups wanting to work with the service. So, for example, we'll be working with the virtual school around care leavers. The space has also been used by different groups and people for meetings and events. So February half term has already been mentioned. It was our busiest week so far, with lots of activities, spotlight talks, craft and story times. And then the recent evaluation of the project, and there is a summary appended to the report. The key things it picked out is it demonstrated the breadth of people from Staffordshire who've engaged with the project, the success of the co-production model, and the increased skills for staff and volunteers, as well as the really positive impact on participants' health and well-being. So the funded activity programme and the exhibition programme continues through to 2026, but beyond that the History Centre will be continued to be supported by Staffordshire County Council, our friends groups, volunteers, and also we have our fundraising trust as well. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank Thank you for that, Joanne. I knew your passion straight away as soon as we started on this journey that you were going to see it to the end and make sure it happens. So this is another really positive news story, and we're really, really pleased that you've been able to bring us the update today. Are there any questions from members? Charlotte?
Yeah, it looked absolutely fantastic. But of course, this is a Staffordshire-wide history centre. It's not just Stafford. It's not just for the town of Stafford. So how are you reaching out to other towns with some of the artefacts? I mean, maybe this might be something for Sarah as the accessibility officer. You know, I know that museums generally will take an artefact with school, possibly, you know, around something they're doing in the curriculum. So really to engage with people outside Stafford so that they then have an incentive to visit Stafford, because they might not otherwise know of the extent of what's on offer. So what are you building into your programme of activities to reach out beyond Stafford?
Yeah, so part of our activity programme is an outreach programme. So we target different areas of the county. We had a lot of research at the start of the project to look at areas with very low engagement, so we could really focus, and one of the aims was to get right to the edges of the county as well. So there's a few ways we're doing that. So we've got the touring exhibitions programme, so identifying venues across the county where our collections can go as part of a formed exhibition. With schools, we're looking at offers for schools that can't physically visit Stafford. So we're looking to establish a loans box scheme where they can have the objects in their own classroom. Also an assembly programme. So one of our project posts is a specialist learning officer. They could go out and deliver assemblies. And then long term, we'd like to have a digital offer as well, so that we can connect into schools digitally and share that information. And then we do other events like different fairs at libraries across the county as well, where we take objects out with us.
So how do schools bid for this programme? Because I think that digital is great, but you know, we're doing so much stuff on screens nowadays. It might be quite nice to see something physically rather than digitally, because I think, you know, it gets to a point where you're never quite sure what's real and what's not. And I think just seeing the artefact itself, whatever it might be, is possibly more of a learning experience than maybe seeing it on screen. So how do schools, or indeed towns, or indeed parishes, bid for some of this outreach activity?
So in terms of the schools, we'll be publicly advertising in a brochure format all of our offers. And we've also got a teacher network that we're encouraging teachers to sign up to so they can get the most relevant information. We've got a new website as well where we can promote information. We have a dedicated area for schools on that website as well.
Lastly, can I ask, is there a facility for different areas of Staffordshire to research local history in terms of, I don't know, whatever they might be interested in, but, you know, looking at periods in the past in their particular town or parish? And how do you encourage that work to continue?
So we do have some local history groups that are already making group bookings in our research room, so they can have access to documents that relate to their area. We also have a local history network as well, which we've broadened, so it's not just museums or collections that can join that. We have a lot of local history societies that are joining that network as well. So we do training events for them, we offer them bespoke advice. We're also doing behind-the-scenes tours for local history groups as well. So we are connecting with them in those ways.
And are these funded, or are they based on a fee?
So the History Network is funded by National Lottery Heritage Fund, so that's free to all the participants, and access to our research room is free as well. The only thing we charge for is behind-the-scenes access, where we require specialist staff input into that.
Just if I could add, obviously when I went for a tour preparing with this with Sarah, she pointed out that she used to work at Newcastle museum in the Brampton Park, which is a wonderful facility. And I did go back to the present manager there and asked, you know, is there links between that museum and the new history centre? And they said yes, showing exhibitions, advertising what's going on at each, etc. I think there's a resource here now that will benefit the entire county. And I think I was very interested when I went across at the maps room upstairs in the. And we have a lot of maps in this building, if you see as well. And I always look to see, no matter how long you go back, 300-400 years, some of the maps, is that when you look at North Staffordshire, you've got Newcastle, you've got Stone, you've got Leek, you've got Cheadle, you've got Biddulph, but no Stoke-on-Trent. And yet it's very topical at the moment that Stoke-on-Trent are launching takeover bids, and they appear very late upon any of the maps. And of course, Councillor Smith, Lichfield was one of the biggest settlement city for many hundreds of years, wasn't it? And then Stafford was quite big too, but the north was quite empty other than the traditional towns now that are under threat. So you can use your history almost to help you with what's coming down the line now, and I'm certainly saying that as often as possible when it comes to the north of the county and Newcastle's independence.
Towns aren't under threat.
Can we keep our political comments outside of the room, please? Did you want to come in?
Tina, can I just come in, please, Chair? So I think what the Archives and Heritage team have done really effectively is work really closely with our libraries team, and I think that also helps to widen access to local history research and also materials, because we've got libraries across the county that are being used as venues to deliver activities, and it's also linking in then the collections that we've got with the Archives and Heritage team with the collections, the local history collections that we've got within our libraries. So I think the two teams working across is really effective in terms of really strengthening that offer for Staffordshire communities.
And I think we can see that has worked massively, because you've got libraries and you've got archives, and they kind of cross paths. So I'm really, really pleased that you've been able to do that, and the success that it's made to the overall project. David, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Firstly, when we went and had a look at the building under construction, it was very, very hard to imagine how it was going to work out. And to see the near completed programme, I think it's a compliment to the team for the way that that's actually been achieved. And so I think from the committee we ought to offer our congratulations to that. Could I just check the county records? Those are all part of what we're looking at. Are they now fully available to the public? Because we went through awful problems where they were difficult to get at. Are we back to normal again now, Chairman?
Yes, you're right. When you last looked at it, we were only offering sort of like one afternoon a week if you needed to see an original document. We are fully open now. We're just asking for advance notice in terms of ensuring that we've got all of the documents that people need. We've had for a number of years an outstore in Stafford. There's nothing wrong with that outstore. We simply want to, when our new strong rooms have dried out, bring all of our documents to one place, because it makes access much easier. And the William Salt Library collection is also in temporary storage. So apart from us taking time to get those items out, people can, so we're asking for 7 days notice, and they book their space, join the archives card scheme and come along to our research room, and they've got full access to consult their documents, take any photos or images that they need, and also enjoy all the new facilities.
Yeah, that's very helpful, and I'm pleased we're making progress on that. I think particularly the problems that the Countryside Rights of Way panel had, that those are now resolved, and we can start to make some real progress in dealing with applications for the Crow panel. So thank you very much for that.
Any further comments or questions? Again, just a really, really good success for us here in Staffordshire. So, yes, thank you to the team, and a massive well done for everything that you've achieved, because it's really seen throughout this document and in the centre itself. I remember you saying something like a 287% uplift, which is massive, and really, really, you should be all proud of yourselves. We've been asked today that we consider the progress of the project, comment on the capital work and activities, and consider the findings of the second evaluation report. I think you've done that massively today, and we're all very clear where we are with it. And again, well done to you all. So thank you for your time this afternoon. We'll go on to item 6, which is the library's investment plan update. Just doing a bit of swappery with chairs. It's not you again, is it, Simon? I hope you've asked for a pay rise this afternoon. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Really, 3 good news stories, really. This is the 3rd one, really. And obviously on behalf of Victoria again, who's been working with the library teams for a number of years, I'm pleased to bring this update on the library investment plan for Staffordshire. Our public libraries sit at the heart of local communities and play a critical role in helping to deliver the County Council's priorities. Over the next 5 years, the County Council has committed to invest £5 million to modernise library buildings. This will allow our libraries to be better placed in response to the local need and the changing use of libraries, which is obviously happening. In the update report you've got before you today, you've been asked to consider the progress on the investment programme and the refurbishment of library buildings. There's a number of those taking place, and provide comments. And consider the library's design brief and also endorse the principles also of the investment in the community managed libraries, an important part of our taking libraries forward. And this update report, together with the supporting appendices, provides information on the progress of those works. And Sue Ball is going to, I believe, give a bit of a presentation now.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Sue Ball and I am Libraries and Arts Manager. And as Councillor Tagg has said in his introduction, our libraries sit at the heart of local communities, and it's really important that we listen to people and we understand how they use libraries and how they and their families will use libraries in the future. So each library refurbishment we carry out starts with local engagement to make sure the library design meets the needs of local people. And this presentation will highlight the key common elements people are telling us they want from their library and which forms the library design brief to the library design companies. And the presentation also demonstrates how we are designing libraries to meet local needs based on our most recent refurbished library, Burton Library. Before I start the presentation, just a couple of points I wanted to mention. The library team have worked with our colleagues in strategic property to review library buildings, and the funding will be used on modernising those County Council libraries that have not had a refit since 2015. Working with strategic property, we've developed a timeline of the libraries in scope, the proposed year of refurbishment and the costs, and you can see this in Appendix 1. The forecast total Staffordshire County Council investment for priority projects is just over £4 million. And these figures may be subject to change due to fluctuations in supply costs and inflation over the period of the project. This leaves £625,377 for our community managed libraries, and an additional £300,000 will be allocated from the Libraries and Arts budget to community managed libraries. A set of principles and processes for the community managed libraries to access the funding has been established, and you can see these in Appendix 2. Each community managed library will be invited to submit an application form for spending up to £30,000 on the public-facing areas of their libraries. In terms of governance, a libraries investment programme board chaired by Councillor Wilson has been set up to monitor the project spend and the time frame, and an operation group with County Council officers is steering and delivering the work. During the period of refurbishment, we will offer a temporary library facility so that each community has a library offer. I mentioned at the start the library design brief, and this slide highlights the common design elements for the library buildings that we've seen from local engagement as we've redesigned libraries over the past 8 years. So people have told us that they want bright, light and airy spaces. They want the spaces to be flexible, to be able to accommodate activities and events, but they also want those spaces to enable them to sit and read and to be quiet so that they can actually study. They want opportunities for digital connectivity, so people want to be able to bring their own devices and plug their devices in. And they also want inspiring children's areas that will encourage that love of reading and that exploration of books. And also something that has come out really quite strongly, not just from our families, but also from the schools that we work with and the nurseries, is that our libraries need to support families with children with special education needs. And something that's also very important to us is green library principles. So where feasible, we want to be able to reuse and repurpose the equipment that we have. So Burton Library is the latest library to be refurbished using these design brief principles. And I will talk you through the before and after spaces in the library. We have 3 library design companies on the County Council framework, and all 3 submitted designs for Burton Library. At our briefings with local members, stakeholders, groups that use the library, and through our coffee drop-ins, people overwhelmingly favoured the design by FG Library and Learning Design Company. And we actually used FG to refurbish Codsall Library. And we're also using FG to refurbish Leek Library. This slide shows the adult library ground floor before the refurbishment, and you can see that slide on the left, which shows how there is little space to sit, and the shelving is laid out in a very traditional style. There are also few spaces for people to meet as a group and to actually socialise and interact. When you look at the slide on the right, the after, now there is space to sit and study, there's a pod for private meetings and comfy chairs to sit and read. Young people told us during the engagement that visiting a library and seeing rows and rows of books with just their spines visible is really off-putting. Where do you start if you're browsing and you don't know which author or title of a book you're looking for? So we wanted to create a library with more face on display, and in the new look library, and I think you can just about see it on that slide, we really wanted to have many more opportunities for that face on display. And it's quite interesting that our January 2025 book issues are up by 17% in comparison to the book issues at Burton Library for January 2024. So we're already beginning to see the benefit of that face on display. Trying to move it on. Oh, there we go. Before the refurbishment on the first floor, we had a bank of PCs, and the layout was not very imaginative or inviting. But you can see on the right, now there is space to bring your own devices, there's spaces to sit and read, and also some spaces as well for quiet study. The library also has some new areas. We've got a new makerspace area for people to craft and sew, and also a new business area as well for one-to-one meetings. So far, the makerspace has been used for weekly knit and natter, a new weekly sew and chat group, and also wellbeing craft taster sessions. People are also using the space as a quiet space for crafting and sewing, as they do not have room at home or they have distractions. They bring their own equipment and they also bring their own materials. Some of the art students from the local college have been using the space for their portfolio work, as the lighting is very good and they say it's a nice, calm space to work in. We've got some have-a-go craft demonstrations planned for the spring, and we've also got a local artist starting a monthly acrylics painting session. Something that was very important to local residents was a gallery space, so for local artists to actually display their work, and so we've actually incorporated that into the maker space. Before the refurbishment, the children's area was looking quite dated, as you can see on the left, and now we have a children's area that has spaces to explore, to learn and to relax, and a nature theme runs throughout to connect the area to the washlands. And the slide that I've chosen to demonstrate the after work has a sensory equipment area to support those families with children with special educational needs. And we've now got the local special school is actually coming in weekly and using that space, so that's really good. Recent engagement with our nurseries and the schools, as I mentioned, has really emphasised that whatever refurbishment programme we carry out with our libraries, equipment like this is really, really important to support those families. And of course, libraries are free. It's a free space for them to come to. So what are people saying about their new look library? Well, people are very pleased with the library and the comments have been really positive. People have said it feels like the future, it's futuristic, it's out of this world, it's a perfect place to read and study, it's clean, it's fresh, it's bright, love the craft space, Burton Library to be proud of, very impressed, lovely job. So I hope this presentation gives you an idea of how we are creating libraries for the future. And through this update, we wanted to recommend to Scrutiny to consider the progress of the investment programme of the refurbishment of library buildings and to provide comment, to consider the library design brief and also endorse those principles for the investment in the community managed libraries, which can be found in Appendix 2. I've also just put my contact details on the last slide, and what I will say is please do contact me if you have any queries from residents. As we refurbish a library in your area, we will share the library designs with you and we will inform you of the engagement dates, and we will keep you informed at each step of the project.
Thank you very much, Sue. You will remember that some of us went to see the Tamworth Library a few Fridays ago. And even though I've been in that library before, when it first opened, I'm still blown away by how it looks and how inviting it is for people to walk in, the reception area. And we did have a bit of a laugh and a giggle as we went round at some of the spaces. I could sit in that sensory space all day long because that was so calming when you run around all day and then you can just imagine yourself sitting there and just coming right down from the ceiling back down. I absolutely loved it, and the layout, the books, the way it's been laid out, it kind of takes you the way you want to go, so you don't really need to think about it. So that was I'm still blown away by Tamworth Library. I think it's an amazing job, and we've brought the outside in with some of the themes on the wall as well. So, questions, David?
Thank you, Chairman. I commend the recommendations and would just mention, obviously you can't have a meeting like this without saying what a fantastic job Lichfield Library is. But I would raise the matter of Shenstone Library. And we seem to have a situation, and I do accept that we're looking at a £30,000 bid that they can make, but we do seem to look at community libraries as being second citizens to the libraries which are the mainstream libraries of Lichfield. I really feel when we start looking at what the libraries are achieving, if you look at what the community libraries are actually achieving, they're doing everything that the main libraries are doing, but in a slightly smaller way. I note when you talked about gallery pictures being on the wall, Shenstone Library have set the pace for doing that a long time ago. Attendance at Shenstone has dramatically increased since we've managed the cafe there. And I just think that we tend to promote our main libraries at the expense of community libraries. And it also seems as though there is two levels of library, which I think we perhaps ought to overcome. Thank you, Chairman.
Sue, did you want to come and respond to that?
What we're really trying to aim for is an integrated library offer. So we support our community managed libraries with their book stocks, with their IT support, and also with building maintenance work as well. In terms of the investment money, we recognise that our community managed libraries, the partners who we work with to deliver those, can actually access funding that as a county council we may not be able to actually access that. So we also have a support mechanism around them in terms of the staffing as well. And we provide, we encourage them to make use of our library social media. We've got a digital engagement officer who works for all the libraries within the county council, and also our newsletter as well. We've got a county newsletter as well as local newsletters. So if they want anything highlighting in there, we try and encourage them as well. We also support them with the Summer Reading Challenge and buy their core materials for them. And then if they want to buy anything extra, they can do that. Shenstone regularly do buy extra materials, which we don't supply to our county council libraries. But also we work with them, if they want to target local schools, we will help them and we'll go out with them, and we will also target local schools. We've just done quite a lot of targeted work at Rising Brook Community Managed Library, which our partner there is MPFT. But we've worked with MPFT and the volunteers, and we've delivered class visits to all the schools around Rising Brook. So we try and support them in that way, in terms of that monetary package, but also as well in terms of support from our library team.
I wasn't questioning the support that the county gave to the community libraries, which I think is excellent. I don't have any criticism of that. But every time I get information about what's on in the libraries, it doesn't include the community libraries. And I think that in the way that we're looking at promoting our libraries, we ought to be including the community libraries within the main thrust of what we're doing. Thank you, Chairman.
I can pick up on that because we've got our county newsletter, so we can definitely make sure that it's a bit more balanced in terms of county council and also community managed.
Ross?
Yeah, thank you. This kind of follows on from what David's question was really, but I just want to flesh it out a little bit more. I need to get it into my head. So I'm looking at Appendix 1 and the libraries and scope. So the capital investments in these libraries, are they all county-owned libraries? And if so, is there a similar investment programme for the community libraries? I understand that they run differently, and I've got 2 fantastic community libraries, Warrington and Blythebridge in my division, which are amazing places to go to. And Warrington Library particularly has got a significant investment, but it was for external well-being log cabins, so it was more about expanding the offering that the library has. But looking at those photos, it's got very much a before feel about it rather than after feel, and it feels like it's ready for some capital investment in there. So can we have some reassurance that there is a programme that follows the community-led libraries? And also the £30,000 that you talk about that the community libraries can apply for, I presume that they're all aware of this and are well educated in how to go about making these applications. And is that 30,000 commensurate with a similar level of investment in the county-run libraries, or are they, as David intimated, potentially the less well looked after members of the library family, if you like? And just a quick comment that I'm really looking forward to seeing the Leek Library when it's finally finished and delivered. It's a great investment in the Staffordshire Moorlands, and hopefully Warrington and Blythebridge will have similar investment in the near future. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson has written to all the partners that we work with to deliver the community managed libraries, informing them of the investment, and then what our libraries area managers are doing after today is having conversations with their community managed libraries to talk to them about what they would like to invest the money in, and then we will be encouraging them to submit an application form. In the application form, we've asked them to consider what difference do they want to make to their local community and what are the priorities for them. And then what we will do is we will sit down with our strategic property partners to integrate their programme of work into this 5-year programme of work that we've got for our county council libraries. So what you will see is this year some community managed libraries coming on board, but we haven't built that into the programme yet because we need to find out what it is what they want to do, but they have been informed and they will be able to submit for that funding.
Yeah, thanks for that reassurance. And I think actually, in fairness, that the grant application form really feeds into the ethos of the libraries controlling their own destiny. So I like that, rather than it being imposed on them from the county as to what it's going to look like. I like the way that they're driving their own destiny. I was just concerned that £30,000 per library was essentially it. And if you look at the numbers in the capital investment fund here, they're an order of magnitude in difference in terms of size. So I was just looking for some reassurance that 30,000 isn't it, and you are looking at the libraries holistically and what else can be done to make sure that they don't drop behind the investment programme for the community-led libraries. Sorry, the county-led libraries. Thank you.
What as we're working with strategic property, what strategic property are also keen to do is carry out any maintenance work. So the funding, the investment funding, will be used on the public areas of the library, and then working with strategic property, there might be areas of parts of a new roof or a new heating system or new lighting, and once we know what those community managed libraries want and how big that scale of work is, talking to strategic property will be guided by them in terms of that timeline, and also just making sure that that maintenance work is also brought into this in addition to the 30,000.
Charlotte.
Yeah, thank you. I'm obviously looking forward to the opening of the Leek Library too. But inevitably, I mean, this is obviously partly funded by the Levelling Up Fund. And many councils have found that they've been unable to deliver on their Levelling Up Fund projects because building costs have skyrocketed. And inevitably, when you're dealing with a historic building like the Nicholson Institute, unforeseen building costs come into play, and I believe that is actually happening. And what worries me is that the project could be under threat if those building costs exceed massively what has been budgeted for. And I really want assurances that, given that the Nicholson Institute is owned by the County Council, that although this is obviously in partnership with the Staffordshire Moorlands District Council, that everything will be done to ensure that we do have the Leek Library delivered after May, when the work is due to come forward. Because obviously we've all seen building costs go massively up, and inevitably, however well managed it is being, and it is being well managed, that we don't want to see this fall by the wayside because of that budget deficit.
As far as I'm aware, the library you're talking about sits with the District Council, but there is a budget for the library element of that building, which has been funded through this programme, I believe.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Any further questions or comments? I think I need to go and visit Burton Library. I actually like the look of that one.
Come to Warrington as well.
Oh, I'm not going travelling halfway around the county.
It's worth it.
The Burton's closest. So if there are no further comments or questions, thank you again for such a positive report. And if Burton Library looks anything like Tamworth Library, I'm going to be wowed again. So I'll look forward to Connor inviting me over to Burton, or I might just appear. So we've just been asked to consider the progress of the investment programme of refurbishment, the library design brief, and I think they're all quite different, and endorse the principles for the investment, which we've just done. So thank you for your attendance this afternoon, and thank you for what you've done to get the libraries to where they are today. And I look forward to seeing them progress further. Thank you. And Councillor Tagg, are you doing bus strategy update as well?
Well, I did have one item, but then 3 more have come along at the same time. So I'm here to sit here and say I'll hand over to the officers, which officers have we got?
Over to you then, Darryl.
I think it's Dave Atkinson just coming, having a change over, yeah.
Are we sorted, gents? Richard, over to you.
Afternoon, Chair. So the committee report provides an update on Staffordshire's bus service improvement plan and the County Council's approach to stabilising and maintaining bus services. While the County Council does not operate buses directly, it plays a coordinating role as the local transport authority. The report outlines the revised BSIP strategy, which aligns with the Department for Transport's requirements for securing funding. The committee is asked to endorse the proposed approach and review potential areas for further improvement. The BSIP strategy aims to create a sustainable and accessible bus network by 2050, focusing on increasing patronage, ensuring reliable and affordable services and improving infrastructure. Extensive analysis of bus patronage, accessibility, traffic delays and community needs inform the revised plan. The enhanced partnership consisting of transport operators, local councils and other stakeholders supports the plan's implementation. Investments will be targeted where the greatest passenger growth is expected, therefore ensuring financial sustainability. The financial update outlines the government bus grant funding of £11.1 million for 25-26. Revenue funding will ensure service continuity and improvements through route extensions, increased frequencies and new services, whilst capital funding will facilitate infrastructure enhancements for all, such as real-time passenger information and better bus stops. A key development is the Zebra 2 initiative, which secured £9.2 million for the 17 electric buses and related infrastructure. Expansion plans could bring an additional 5.3 million, further advancing Staffordshire's green transport strategy. The strategic alignment of improved bus services with local economic, social and environmental objectives ensures that public transport remains a viable, efficient and sustainable option for residents. The report highlights ongoing community engagement and impact assessments to ensure equitable access to transport services across Staffordshire. Richard.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon. I've got a short presentation to run through, if that's okay. I don't intend to go through the report line by line, but I've got a few slides with more pictures than text. So, and we have got a novelty item. I remember last time we said that we couldn't do any tours for the electric buses yet, but we've brought something to showcase today. But thank you for the opportunity to provide an update today on local buses. It's been a few months since we last came, but it's the right time to come and discuss some of the developments we've made with local bus service across Staffordshire. As David has just discussed, that we do have a role. It's an important role, that is to coordinate and encourage the development of a sustainable bus network for the benefit of Staffordshire residents. Our revenue budget for 25-26 that has been allocated to us from the DFT is very similar to this current financial year. So our revenue budget is to maintain and stabilise the same levels of service. But as I'll touch on in a few moments' time, there has been some noticeable improvements to some of the services that we do provide. We have for the first time got a capital allocation from the DFT, which is the first time since the introduction of the BSIPs. And we want to maximise that capability to improve bus stop infrastructure, to improve accessibility for all. And I think that accessibility for all is crucial, hopefully come across in this presentation today. So the presentation really is asking the committee to endorse the update and review our improvement plans. Going back to June 24, there was a requirement by DFT to refresh, I'm doing it on my laptop, sorry, our bus service improvement plan. We did do that. It is a key document of the authority's local transport plan. It's vision-led, place-focused and evidence-based piece. Our revised BSIP was informed by extensive analysis of bus patronage data, bus reliability data, household accessibility, bus stops, traffic delay, bus stop conditions. So a whole raft of data went into the development of this bus service improvement plan, and it was noted by the DFT that it was a showcase example for other local authorities. And due to the refresh, we were allocated our bus service grant for 25-26. So in total, we have been allocated just over 11 million. Of that 11 million, just over 5 million is revenue. That is, I say, very similar to this current year. So it's not an additional amount. That's why it's more for stabilising and maintaining the bus services rather than being able or have the opportunity to introduce lots of new services, unfortunately. And just over 5.2 million is capital that we'll be developing a project plan for the coming financial year. The BSOG element of 700k and the capacity and capability grant are very similar to what we received this financial year. So apart from the capital element, it was like for like, shall we say. I have mentioned that we are maintaining and stabilising our current bus services. However, there has been significant improvements in 24-25 that we are to continue in 25-26. What we've always wanted to achieve is not to put on bus service that then end within 12 months. We want to make sure that it's lasting. So we've set our stall out to do that, and so we're not taking any bus services off for the foreseeable future. So we've looked to extend operating hours, extend the routes, the frequencies, introduce new routes. And the driver behind this is that we want to align with the National Bus Strategy objective to grow bus patronage. So in numbers wise, we've 25 routes, and in addition to the Moorlands Connect demand responsive transport service that we've got in Staffordshire Moorlands, they were commercially unviable. The authority has stepped in to ensure that those services haven't been withdrawn. 16 routes have had enhanced additional operating hours or days. 10 new routes have been introduced across the county. We've also stepped in when there's been disruption, for example, the Lough closures or the Branston Bridge closure in Burton. We've introduced new bus services to provide services for the local residents. But now we've got some capital investment opportunities now. We've always had an element out of the capital programme, which has been roughly around the £150,000 mark, where we've looked to identify bus stop locations where we can improve either the bus shelter or the curbs or the alignment. The image on your screen is Docksey in Stafford, Greensome Lane Docksey, where we had to do a layout revision. The actual bus couldn't get into the bus stop, so we had to undertake some remedial works to change the layout for that. So we've always had a programme of locations where we'd like to implement changes. And alongside that, we have developed a bus infrastructure and information in Staffordshire guide. This has been coordinated alongside colleagues in development and control, where for any new bus stops that are going to be introduced in the future, whether that be housing estates or business parks, we set out in the beginning of the planning process exactly what we expect, what the standards we wish to see. So any new standards, any new bus stops in the future will align with our requirements going forward. But we've begun to introduce some quite new innovative infrastructure, if I just get my clicking right. And that includes this machine device on the desk. So we've started to introduce integrated digital publicity. This is at Cannock Bus Station. We've introduced totems. This is one we haven't paid for an actor to stand in front of that totem to right on time, but we've introduced these at bus stations. We've got one outside Staffordshire Place 1. So these are really important to provide information for bus stops, the clock and count down for when they're going to arrive. They're also advertising spaces as well, and we do gain the revenue, some revenue from that advertising spaces that will then lead to ensuring that it pays for the maintenance. And we've also developed, we've worked closely with a supplier called JMW, and we've developed what we're calling a pole-mounted solar real-time publicity information screen. So it's pretty much that screen there where everything is all on one pole, so to speak. So in a number of locations, you'll have different poles with either the flag on or a display screen. We've now developed a system, and it's solar powered as well. So in a lot of occasions, there's difficulties trying to get a connection to it, where this is now solar powered, all on one pole, quite cost effective as well. And we're rolling these out initially across our Lough corridors on the A34 and A51 in Burton as well. But it's with the capital programme, we will be, with the bus grant funding, we will be rolling these out across the county and discussing them with parish councils and that, whether they would like to purchase them as well. So quite a lot of innovation going on. We believe this is a standalone, first in the country piece of kit that we've developed, and yeah, something that we're very proud of. Other developments is in relation to, we're developing our own accessibility route planning app, and so these images are very, very new. They're just initial ideas really. We're going to go to different accessibility groups. We've got the neurodiversity board next week, where we're discussing these ideas with and understanding exactly what are the requirements, what have we got right, what are we missing. We want an app really that is multilingual audio support, inclusive, user-friendly interface, and just gives that increased confidence in travel on buses. So I say we're looking at different ways of improve accessibility for all, both in terms of infrastructure, but also in the information that we provide to our bus users. Recently, we've been successful in a zero-emission bus regional area, or what we call Zebra Grant, and this will ensure that the local authorities receive £9.2 million worth of funding into Staffordshire. That's on top of the contributions for the operators Arriva and Diamond. Zebra, for example, for the vehicles works that the operator gets the 75% difference between a diesel equivalent bus and an electric bus. So it's quite substantial outlays the operators are putting out. But in total, there'll be 17 new zero-emission buses in Staffordshire. The first 6 will arrive in Burton hopefully next week. Then 2 will be operational straight away, and then the 6 will be fully operational when the depot in Burton becomes fully electrified. Hopefully by October they'll have gantry charging, and the operator there is looking to entire fleet to go electric, which is fantastic. And they've also put in an expansion bid to Zebra for an additional £5.3 million of investment into Staffordshire. So soon we'll have some electric buses in Staffordshire, which will be fantastic. And the other operators in Staffordshire will be working with them as well, hopefully to support them with this initiative as well. But why we're doing this, all the work that we're putting into the local bus service, we want a high quality and sustainable bus network links several of the authority's strategic priorities. This includes Staffordshire's economy by providing access to employment, education, train opportunities and increasing footfall in our town centres. A more reliable bus network could also encourage regular and new users to consider public transport as a preferred travel option, increasing levels of sustainable travel across the county and supporting Staffordshire's climate change agenda. There's going to be an additional focus on ensuring accessibility for all through infrastructure and information, enabling all our diverse community needs are met. So going forward, we'll continue to bid and secure additional funding to implement our BSIP strategy. We'll deliver our infrastructure and service improvements by March 26, where hopefully there'll be a next round of funding and we'll hopefully deliver more infrastructure across the county. But we'll also commit to ongoing consultation with communities and transport operators to develop a bus service for all for Staffordshire. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Richard. Music to my ears, electric buses, yay. I've noticed in the report about Tamworth Depot being electrified. Do we have a date or a timescale for that?
So alongside Diamond Bus with the Zebra bid, the Arriva worked with us and were successful as well. They recently have been taken over, Arriva have. So we're just waiting for confirmation that they are purchasing electric buses and will then proceed with the planning permission, because they're looking for gantry charging as well. So it takes up some less space, but it puts a bit more onus on the roof structure and that. So again, we're working with them. Once they've made the commitment to purchase the buses, then the planning permission will go in. So we're hoping next 12 months.
Brilliant. David?
Thank you, Chairman. 3 things, Chairman, if I may. One is to say that we're just in the stages at the moment of completing our neighbourhood plan revision. And the one thing that's come out of that, which was a big criticism when we first did it 10 years ago, was the improvement in the rural bus service. So congratulations on that. The second thing I was going to just mention was when you walk out of here, the number of buses that stand idle with their engines running. When we're starting to look at climate change, really I think that bus operators should get a smack on the fingers for the way their buses sit with their engines running. The last thing I was going to mention, which I wondered whether I would have raised it here at all, but when I look at item 6F, where we talk about the safety of bus stops. I have a bus stop in my division which sits in the middle of the entrance to a muddy field, which has caused major problems because it sits next to a large development. The developer, and I'm pleased to say I've been involved in assisting him in what we're doing, has now paid to the county council £100,000 to move 2 bus stops, one of which didn't need moving, but that's another issue. I was very, very concerned when the developer rang me the other day to say that the legal department of the county council wouldn't deal with a small piece of land which needs to be transferred from the developer's ownership into the county's ownership until they'd paid £4,500 to pay for the legal costs. And I really feel that's extortionate when you think that the legal department are holding the bus operators to ransom over something where there is £100,000 being paid to the county. And I really think if you would take that back and have a look at it and perhaps come back to me. Thank you.
I think that's something that the officers can take back. I don't think it's for discussion here. So if we can take that back for discussion outside. Charlotte?
I'm very glad to see that some work on accessibility route planning. That's excellent news. But to take one disability, a wheelchair user, how many of our buses in Staffordshire are wheelchair accessible? Great to see you're doing all the work on the bus stops and the drop curbs and everything else. But if you can't get onto the bus with a wheelchair, or for that matter, you know, with a buggy, then that would be an issue. Now, I'm aware, obviously, that we don't run the vacant seat scheme because our bus fleet is not compliant with the public vehicle accessibility requirements. So do you have an idea of what percentage of the buses are not wheelchair accessible? Because I think that, you know, if you're going to encourage older people to use buses and to continue to use buses, then obviously accessibility is an important issue.
Right, thank you. The answer to the question is that any bus that is used on a public service is legally required to be PSVAR compliant, and our entire fleet are, unless it is less than 16 seats. We have one contract that is a trial service out of Hanbury once a week, which is non-compliant, but that will be from the renewal, which is around about the end of April. I've just re-tendered that. I think what you're referring to is the private school contracts that are closed door. We're currently trying to find out what the percentage mix is amongst the fleet, because the government allow exemptions for this, but you can't have new exemptions, so they expire in 2026 unless they decide to extend them. But that's down to the operator to apply for the number of vehicles, but they can't increase it. And one of the requirements to have it maintained is that they are increasing their compliance percentage of the fleet year on year. We also said we're trying to find out for the closed door contracts, which is what vacant seats refer to. But then, even then, they would only be, the vacant seat scheme was only available to students. In terms of pensioners, OAPs, disabled travelling, all our services are currently compliant. It's only the stops that are not yet.
Could you, if I could ask another question, I think you say somewhere that, where are we? That the DFT will not approve the 25-26 delivery plan. Could you explain why that is the case?
They will approve it, but we need to fill in all the appropriate paperwork by the 31st of March before they will, which is basically telling them what we're going to do with it. So it's a case of we are going through process. Now they've sent us the forms, we're going through process of filling them all in.
Okay, so it is compliant, so it will,
yes.
it will get approval. Well, that's a relief, yes.
Yeah, it was more that it's not going to be approved. Our funding isn't based on it being approved or not. We need to demonstrate and produce a project plan, which they'll review and look at, but it won't be rejected, so to speak. Our funding won't be. Funding's been allocated. We'll receive the funding. We've got to do a project plan, but it's not dependent on a project plan, if that makes sense. Sorry if I've explained that.
And now, lastly, I see that a much-needed refurbishment of Leek bus station is on the cards. What is the timeline for that? Are we talking years, decades, or what?
Well, subject to the approval from the district council, obviously own it, we don't. It's next year. So what we're looking at is new RTR, real-time information system, repaint, new lighting, CCTV, any access issues when we look at it in detail. And we're also going to reduce the number of bays on it from 8 to 2 because it doesn't need 8 bays. And to be honest, they're all too short to fit a bus on anyway. So we're just going to, it's a nice revamp as best we can do without putting a bulldozer through it.
One would think that a bulldozer might be a good way forward, but yes, I appreciate that. So what permissions are you waiting for from the district council?
We're setting up meetings now with our proposals for all 8 districts across the county, because we want to talk to them about what we want to do everywhere. But it's a case of, once they agree that, yes, we can do it, there'll be discussions about access, contractors. It's just the fact that we're paying to do work on someone else's property, basically, and it'll be that sort of discussion. I don't know exactly. We've never tried this before, so we'll know more once we've had these meetings.
If you could keep me informed, as I'm the Cabinet Member for Services, and that includes assets. So if you please let me know, because if there is any logjam, then I will want to get that sorted immediately. Thank you.
Connor?
I must confess, I don't use buses that much, if not since I was a very young boy. However, a lot of residents email me about buses, and I've had more concerns about Burton's bus service than I've ever had, and I've been a councillor for 12 years, would you believe it? So, on that basis, one of the issues is around the real-time information boards. Quite a few of them aren't working in Burton. They may have been fixed just recently, but for months they were out of service and it was just dark screen. Just clarify for me, do these screens include information just on the timetable, or is it actually a real-time service whereby you can actually say the bus is late, it's going to be 10 minutes late, etc.? Because that would be really useful, because if it's just showing me the timetable, to be honest with you, I can find that on my phone.
Okay, yeah, the system is real-time, subject to the operators providing all the correct data to the supplier.
Okay.
It counts down. The way you can tell instantly, if you look at it, if it's got a time on it, it's showing you its scheduled time. If it's got a number of minutes on it, it's counting down. It'll only count down in the last hour, and it can only see one journey back. So if the bus is running late and there's 2 journeys back, it won't start counting down until it's on the journey before. It's to try and give something realistic. The other proviso I'll put on it is, of course, it says it's 5 minutes away. If the traffic is stationary, it will stay at 5 minutes away. It's only as good as what it can see. But yes, they do really count down. This is a lovely example. This is a self-contained solar unit. There are a number of these in Burton. If you could have a look around Winsell, you will see them up there. It's the first in the country. We're the first people to have these. Other people have got units, but there's solar panels somewhere else. It's on the back of this. So we are literally the first people to have these out in the country. The data on here, though, I will say, is off the test system. I wanted to make sure we got buses showing on it, and I didn't pick a stop where there was no buses due when I put it in front of people. In terms of your complaints about Diamond, we are aware of them. Unfortunately, most of the services in Burton are commercially operated, so we don't have the control over them. There's only a few that are on contract, and they're all up for renewal at the end of August. But to offer it to someone else has to bid on it. That's part of the problem. So, yeah, but I am very aware of the level of service issues, and we do periodically haul them over the coals. So.
Yes, I mean, I appreciate they run the service. That being said, there must be, and I know I've communicated via email, that there must be mechanisms and levers in order to hold them to account in some way. And we are, as a county council, sort of overseeing that, and we have a bus improvement plan. So if I went to residents and says, look, we've got this bus improvement plan and we've been doing it for 18 months, but actually the service has got worse, doesn't look great on us, and I want to see that service improve, and my email inbox reducing in the amount of numbers of bus issues that I get. What can we actually do? Because it is having a massive impact on people generally getting to work, and it's going to have a massive impact on the success of the bus improvement plan if we can't address some of those issues.
We are fully aware of the issues that we've had, especially at the start of this academic year. We've had regular meetings with Diamond on a monthly basis. We've worked with them to make timetable changes, to give more time to the service, to make sure they're running on time. That gives that confidence to those bus passengers that the bus is going to turn up when it's set to going to turn up. I say we do have those regular meetings with them, and we are seeing improvements. I'm not saying it's completely at the position we want to be, but that's what we're working at with them with it. They are open to our suggestions regarding timetable changes. We're not telling them exactly what to do. We are there to provide options for them, and we are working with them. So I think it's improving, and we are working with them to make that change. Regarding some of the, I think the initial point about the data as well, we're working with operators regarding the data as well. You're absolutely right. We're putting out a lot of this new equipment, and it's no good if the data isn't correct. So there's a number of operators across the county that we've worked very closely with to improve that data, because we don't want to launch all this new innovative equipment if the data's not right. So there's a lot of work going behind the scenes as well before we press the button and launch a lot of these new pieces of equipment. But yes, we are aware of the operator, and we are working with them on their services.
I just wanted to add also that we hold the operators to account at the Enhanced Partnership meeting, at the Enhanced Partnership Board. So that's the mechanism, that's the legal scheme that is the overarching governance for the bus service improvement plan.
You've got that device in front of you. I don't suppose you're able to show us how it works, are you? Because it's right, okay, it's solar powered. While he's still walking around, when we did our pre-meet, Richard, I raised about the trams that go through Birmingham New Street, and when you're standing at the actual bus stop, or whatever you want to call it, they actually speak to you as well. So you don't just see it as a visual, it actually talks to you and says, the next tram at this stop is going to Wolverhampton at this time. So will that have it, or is that something we need to look at going forwards?
It has the potential. I think what we're going to do is work with the supplier JMW with their stand, which is outside their depot, just to make sure we don't want to be overused. Okay, a lot of these pieces of equipment will be in public areas, so don't want it to go off all the time, and that maybe if it's just to press a button, maybe, but that could be to use. But we just need to, it's possible, that's what we're saying, we just need to work it through to make sure it's how we're going to get the best of it. But the technology is there, you just need to find a way just to...
Yeah, the other issue with it, of course, is a lot of these are directly outside people's windows and doors, so we don't want them particularly complaining about the noise.
David, did you just want to come in? I saw you.
Apologies, Chair, I forgot what I was going to say. That was it, the inclusivity work that we do with those groups will help to inform the kind of look and feel, and particularly, so technically the answer is yes. So the totems and these, technically that can be done, but we'll work with various different groups to make sure that that's in the right way and is appropriate.
Thanks, David. Well, all I can say is it's another positive strategy for today. We're on a roll. We're gonna end it well. So if there are no further questions or comments to be made, and just get back to the start. So we've endorsed the update and approach being taken to maintain and stabilise bus services. You've explained to us that that's what's going to happen. There's no extra money. And review further areas of consideration and improvement being developed to deliver the best service improvement plan. Again, I think we've done that, and the slides helped us envisage that. So if there are no further comments or questions, you're free to leave. But you've got to stay, Councillor Tagg, to go through the work programme. I'm only joking. You've been here all afternoon. Thank you so much for your dedication. And we'll move swiftly on to the work programme, and I'll ask Jacob to take us through that.
Yep, thank you, Chair. So first, just to confirm the items for the next meeting, we have the Staffordshire County Council's Economic Strategy Delivery 6-month update, We Are Staffordshire, and the Traffic and Network Management Plan. I would also like to provide a general update on the work programme. So the HS2 6-monthly update, Impact on Opportunities for Staffordshire, focusing on economy, training and skills. That's a work programme item which has moved from the 18th of March to the next municipal year. The Traffic and Network Management Plan, which was going to be a briefing outside a committee, has now been cancelled and is now a work programme item for the 18th of March, as previously mentioned. And the Framework for Food Waste Disposal is a work programme item for the future work programme 25-26. I'd also like to mention that the Network Management Task and Finish Group will now be considered as a briefing outside of committee following conversations between the Chair and senior officers. A polite reminder that there is a site visit to Lichfield Highways depot on Wednesday, the 12th of March at 10 a.m. Even if you're not attending, please could you tell me if you're not attending, because there is limited capacity, I have been informed. And finally, as mentioned previously in the meeting, the notes of the site visit to Tamworth Library, they are now available and they are part of Appendix 1 in the work programme.
Thank you very much, Jacob. Connor?
On the Traffic and Network working group, I'm not happy that it's a briefing because I don't think we'll get into the weeds enough to actually resolve the problem. Who's agreed that it's a briefing? Because at the working group, not the working group, sorry, at the last committee we agreed that it would be a task and finishy type working group situation. So why is it a briefing?
So I had a conversation with senior officers and I did email you, Chair, and you agreed for it to be a briefing outside committee. The main reason why is because the content of the task and finish group was to do with something which Staffordshire County Council is bound by national policy. So it would require a change in national legislation, and it wasn't deemed that it was something that task and finish group could effectively influence on a national scale. So having spoke to both traffic and network managers, the Chair came to the agreement that a briefing outside committee would suffice, and during that briefing the managers will be happy to explain the limitations and constraints of the County Council with respect to network management.
With respect to them, and I think I'm almost classified as an expert on traffic and network management these days, I'll be honest. Because I deal with it so much. Truth of the matter is, yes, there's a national framework, yes, there's legislation, yes, there's guidance. But a lot of it is about the relationships that we have with the utility companies and what they should do for certain things and what we should be doing to make sure it happens. It doesn't necessarily take reliance on regulation or anything like that. It's just simply our mechanisms and processes and procedures in order to make that happen. That's what we need to get into. And I can ask questions at a briefing, but it's not going to bring the goods and the thing and the change that's actually required, in my opinion.
Darryl, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I wasn't involved in the conversation, so apologies if I say something different to what the officers who briefed you are. But I think if there's a briefing, what I would suggest is we use that as a starter instead of the be-all and end-all of this. So those members that attend, it's that chance to kind of probe and ask those questions. And if we don't get the answers from those sessions we want, then we agree following that, well, we want to go down these key lines of inquiries and have a task and finish group set up to go down them, set that out clearly, because there's clearly been a misunderstanding, hasn't there, outside of this, it sounds like to me. So if we use that first briefing session to start asking those questions and then from that agree the kind of terms of reference for what a task and finish piece would look like, it'll be a bit more focused then. It kind of meets everyone's requirements, I think, then.
I mean, I hear what you say and I respect your position, Darryl, and I always have done. I just think we're delaying the inevitable. I think we should just get into it. The issues that are facing all of us, and I'm sure we've all had issues that come through our inbox, are very timely, very topical issues that are coming up with us as councillors. And if we have a briefing, which is going to be in a month's time, and then we say, oh, well, there's a few things that we haven't really got, and then we'll have a group, and then we'll have to set it up. We'll be at the end of the municipal year. Some of us won't be here. Some of us will. And I just feel that we're dragging our heels on it. I think residents want action immediately, and therefore I think we should go for it. And to be honest with you, it's up to this group and this committee to decide whether it wants a task and finish group on whatever, not senior officers, I'm afraid. So my view is we should have a task and finish group to look at it in detail. That's my recommendation to the committee. I completely appreciate the committee don't want to do that, but I'll put it out to floor if the chair agrees. Thank you.
I'll just say, I obviously wasn't involved, so I don't know what's happened here, but we'll support whatever the committee decides to do in terms of pace and timing. And you've got the strategy that drives that coming through, I think, at the next meeting of the committee, which is helpful to see the bigger picture, which might also help set those terms of reference again, because you do need clear terms of reference, otherwise it's a free-for-all and doesn't get focused. But as officers, I'll make sure we support whatever it is the committee decides to do.
Yeah, so in terms of briefing outside of committee, it was to do with it being an information-oriented exercise, I guess you'd say. Obviously, you want more action on the ground in terms of, going forward. What I might suggest in terms of a procedural point of view is if I go back to the senior officers I spoke to previously, we have that conversation again, and then I'll relay back to the chair. But just to clarify, the chair did approve the briefing outside of committee, so it wasn't a unilateral decision on behalf of senior officers.
I agreed it because I thought it was better that we had some sort of focus going forwards rather than everybody piling in and saying, oh, well, I've got this and they don't do this, and it ends up being too much. So if you're going to have a task and finish group, you need to know which lines of inquiry you're taking. You can't take all of them because we've all got different issues. Much of them are the same, but we've all got different issues. And I think if we try and do it too big, we'll lose that focus. So if we have that briefing, task and finish group, whatever you want to call it, briefing first, see what they've got to say to us, ask the questions we want to ask, and then take it forward with the lines of inquiry.
Agree that we do a briefing, but it's in the task and finish group, which we then decide the scope of that group. So in other words, that is informed by senior officers, and that we ensure that it's narrow enough that we don't end up drifting off into lots of things that we can't deal with, but focus on the things that we can. And we could do that within an hour and a half, I'd say. If we just had a session over Teams, I think it would work quite easily. Otherwise, I just think, well, look, we're going to have a briefing, right? We're going to have an basically senior officers are saying this is my assumption, right? They're saying we need to give them the information because they don't understand what's going on, right? And that's an insult to my intelligence, truthfully, because we've had umpteen meetings and discussions about exactly what's going on, and we know what is going on. We just need things to change slightly and relationships to be changed slightly between utility companies and the council in order to make things work more effectively. That's how it seems to me to be the case. And I'd like to draw into that a little bit more. I think what we'll have at a briefing is, well, these are the things that happen, this is the regulation and so on, but we're not really getting into the depths of what we need to get into. That's my view.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I defer to the chair and the committee in terms of the final decision. Obviously, I can't speak on behalf of senior officers such as the traffic and network managers. So I will defer to the chair on this and invite your opinion in terms of an action moving forward.
We'll go with what Connor's just said, and we'll have the group. What did you say? With my head's mashed.
So that everyone knows what we can do in law and what we're not responsible for and can't do, and then we discuss how narrow we make the scope of the task and finish group to ensure that we don't go off into the depths of whatever, and we're focused on what we need to do.
Yeah, I can amend that as part of the work programme and report back to committee.
We haven't got any exclusion of the public today. We haven't got anything in confidential. So the date of the next meeting is Tuesday the 18th of March at 1:30 here. Thank you all for today's attendance. It's been a longer meeting than usual, but we had a lot of stuff to get through. Thank you, Darryl, for sitting through it all. And obviously thanks to Councillor Simon Tagg that took on everyone else's report. And I'll bid you a good afternoon.